over a number of years. Whether it's a plus or a minus, we need to be adjusting the budget regularly, I think, for significant changes, and we have to identify what significant changes are and agree to that. But I think this has some merit, and I know that nobody wants to close the library, so I thought this was certainly, I appreciate Councilman Howard putting this together, and I think it was a step in the right direction.
Further discussion on the motion? The vote, Mrs. Plata?
Councilmember Howard.
Yes.
Kerwin?
No.
McGinnis?
No.
Slater?
No.
Schilling?
No.
Councilmember Beltramini?
No.
And Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Motion fails.
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman Beltramini?
before we move on, and at some point, I think that we do need to not only address the point brought up by Councilman Howrlack about how we function with multi-year budgets and estimated changes in revenue and expenditures. Having never done a multi-year budget before, it is kind of a learning exercise. We got the reallocation from management in November, and we noted and filed it. And that became the governing document of the multi-year budget without a vote of council. And that may or may not be the best way to set financial policy. So that's one thing that I think we need to discuss as a body. And then I sent you all a whole memorandum of some things that I believe that we need to discuss in response to this issue, the ICMA report, and some other things, and we can discuss that whenever as well, because I think that we have great frustration from the public that they don't all have confidence that the decisions we are making are what they would have made in our stead.
The vote has already been taken on this item, and so really the discussion after the effect is not in order, but there are other opportunities here. Next, we have H2, which is directive from City Council to the City Administration to provide business and organization recommendations to conduct a community survey. And at the time when this was, it's moved and by Councilman Slater, seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis, so it's on the floor, so it is appropriate for discussion on this item. At the time when this was mentioned, there was discussion at this council table of having a study session to further flesh out and delineate some of the things that we wanted to have in this. And I was hopeful that we would have that discussion. One thing I know that I don't want for sure is the kind of telephone survey that I received on the weekend. I received a polling phone call from Congressman Boehner's office and saying, would you like to answer on these questions? And then they said, well, hold on. Well, then he talked for 5 minutes to tell me his position. I finally hung up. I didn't even give my opinion on what was going to be asked. So I would hope that when council decides if they're going to go for a statistically significant community survey, whether it's by phone or some other method, that we do it by having succinctly do the questions for people and they can give their opinion. And there may be several ways that we can do that. If we decide to do something with a phone, or if we decide to do something online, if we decide to do something with a computer, we would have to have some kind of mechanism like people putting in their parcel number or their address so that we would know that they truly are a property owner in Troy, and that they've only can do this once. You know, they can't go in several times on a poll and go in several times. So with that said, I don't know if other council members want to comment on this, if they want to have a vote on this, or if they want to move it to have a study item after this meeting.
Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
As I recall the last meeting exactly like as you do. I remember Councilmember Beltramini bringing up some ideas, and she was grateful that you acknowledged that they were brought up. I see tonight that item O, study session, has no study session. It would be my preference that we, in fact, suspend the rules and move to add study session and talk about public engagement strategies, including some that Councilmember Beltramini wrote up and sent to the city manager for our consideration. At that study session, my hope would be that we could address some of these issues, and I would prefer to postpone I'm just talking, I'm not postponing, but I would prefer to postpone this until after we had that opportunity to speak together. So at this moment, what I'd really like to do is a move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini, that we suspend the rules at this time. Discussion of the suspension. Mrs. Plata, the vote?
Councilmember Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Mayor Schilling.
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini.
Yes.
Fleming.
Yes.
And Howerlack.
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Motion passes. Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
01, I would like to add study items, a session to consider public engagement strategies.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini, that we add study item 01, study session to discuss recommendations regarding a survey?
Well, public engagement
Public
strategies.
engagement strategies, because they're more than just that, and some of those we've talked about at other times. Discussion? Vote, Mrs. Plata?
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Mayor Schilling.
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini.
Yes.
Fleming.
Yes.
Howerlack.
Yes.
And Kerwin.
Yes.
Motion passes. Do we need
Madam Mayor,
a resolution on the postponement? Yes. Councilman Beltramini?
I would move to postpone item H2 until the next regularly scheduled meeting, March 7th.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, that we postponed H2 to the next council meeting, March 7th. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Plata?
You're right.
Yes?
We meet next
Mr.
week.
Zerling?
We have a meeting next week.
I'm fine on that.
On the 28th?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think we'll need some research done.
Oh, okay.
I mean, somebody can amend the motion, but I'm not going to do it. I want to allow us time to do this right.
Further discussion on the postponement to March 7th? The vote, Mrs. Plata?
Councilmember Slater.
Yes.
Mayor Schilling.
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini.
Yes.
Fleming.
Yes.
Howerlack.
No.
Kerwin.
Yes.
And McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have regular business items. The city council appointments, the Employee Retirement System Board of Trustees, Retiree Health Care Benefits Plan and Trust, a reappointment of an ex officio DB retiree rep.
Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin.
Resolved that Troy City Council hereby appoints the following person to serve on the boards and committees, and that would be William Need, ex officio DB retiree rep, with a term expiring 12/31/2013.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, seconded by Councilman Howerlack, that we reappoint William Need as the ex officio DB retiree rep at a term expiring December 31st, 2013. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Pilata?
Mayor Schilling,
Yes?
Councilmember Beltramini,
Yes.
Fleming,
Yes.
Howerlag,
Yes.
Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
and Slater.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, boards and committee nominations, mayor nominations. I move forward the name of Frank A. Strahl for the Board of Review for the unexpired term to expire January 31st, 2012.
Support.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin. And I have a question. I see Mr. Licari standing at the back. If we have the name moved today and then we vote next week, is that in enough time to have him appear for the first Board of Review meeting and the training that occurs before they can come on that board? Mr. Licari?
That would be the day before the first day, but that would be quite all right with us.
Okay. And since this individual is a person with 40-year mortgage experience, I'm sure that he's had lots of experience in this.
Thank you, Mayor. We've had numerous conversations already. His training has begun.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion of the motion for the forwarding of the name? The vote, Mrs. Plata?
Councilmember Beltramini,
Yes.
Fleming,
Yes.
Howerlag,
Yes.
Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
and Mayor Schilling.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have I-4, which is a 2011 poverty exemption guidelines, changes from the previous year.
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Beltrame?
I would move the resolution as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilman Fleming, that we approve the resolution as printed. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Plata?
Councilmember Fleming,
Yes.
Howerlag,
Yes.
Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Mayor Schilling,
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini.
Yes.
Motion passes. I-5, scheduling of a special meeting of the Troy City Council at 6 o'clock.
There's a
It says Monday, February 26th, and that should read
March 28th.
March 28th as, is it on the table on the yellow?
Yes.
No, okay, on the 28th. But in your printed agenda, I know it does say February, which is next Monday, March 28th.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Beltrame?
Resolved that the Troy City Council hereby schedules a special meeting at 6 p.m. on Monday, March 28th, 2011, at 2675 Bellingham, Troy, Michigan 48083, with Ken Rogers, Executive Director of Automation Alley, to discuss the development plan of the Local Development Finance Authority, LDFA, Automation Alley's possessive funding needs, economic development benefits of Automation Alley, and to provide Troy City Council with the opportunity to tour Automation Alley's facility.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Beltramini, seconded by Councilman McGinnis. Discussion of the motion. I have a question about time constraints. We have a council meeting at 7:30 that night. Is there enough time to be there from 6 to 7, conclude what we have to do, and be here by 7:15? Is there like?
Mr. Miller set this up. I'm going to defer to him in terms of what is the agenda specifically for that evening.
Yes, Automation Alley will provide food for staff and council members, and it'll be available before the meeting, and they're aware that the meeting has to end at 7 o'clock,
Okay.
so that there's enough time to get back to this building.
All right. Thank you. Further discussion? The vote, Mrs. Plata?
Councilmember Howerlag,
Yes.
Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
And Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. I-6 is the deficit elimination plans for the Aquatic Center and the Sanctuary Lake Golf Course. We want to have a resolution, then if someone wants to discuss an item.
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Beltramini?
I will move the resolution as printed to approve and adopt the Aquatic Center and Sanctuary Lake Golf deficit elimination plans presented at this meeting.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, that we approve the motion as printed. Discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman McGinnis?
I just had a question that I know was brought up by a citizen during public comment in terms of the plan that was laid out. Is there someone that could give us additional information about how the figures came to be in terms of revenue for the coming years? I understand that this is something that we have to do every year, that we don't meet that budget line, but I just thought in terms of people that wanted additional information or may not be privy to how this takes place every year, that we could have somebody answer those questions and tell us where the figures came from.
I think Mr. Reagan's comments were about the increase of the revenue that's coming in, and we would want to talk about the fact that it would still be in deficit even with that increase, and why those increases were occurring was his question.
Yes,
Is
and
there
Mr. Lamorato will be happy to explain it.
Mr. Lamorato?
Sure. Mayor and City Council, what you have before you is a plan, and the plan says what it will take to bring those funds into balance. What the state is really looking at is if you're making progress in eliminating and getting those plans so they do break even and eliminate this deficit over a period of time. They review each year's audits, and that's where these numbers are coming from. Both the Aquatic Center and Sanctuary Lake had improvements last year in their operations. The Sanctuary Lake improved their actual deficit for the year by almost $52,000. The city has hired Billy Casper Golf to operate both golf courses. We're hoping that over the years, and we're looking for much improvement next year, whether it's going to be that amount or not, but we're looking for much improvement in those courses. And I think as long as we can show that we are bringing the courses back into where revenues will equal expenditures, that's what we hope to do. To eliminate the deficit is in this economy and so forth is going to be difficult, and I think the state realizes that also. They just want to see some improvement in those areas. As far as the Aquatic Center goes, first, none of these are not funded by the general fund. Either one of these are enterprise operations of the city. The Aquatic Center, with our goal of operating revenues, meeting their expenditures, less depreciation. Depreciation is a non-cash item expenditure. They had actual positive cash of $53,800 last year for the Aquatic Center. You do not consider depreciation as an expenditure. Also, their operating expenses decreased $34,000 for the Aquatic Center from the year before. So we continue to look at these. Each year we look at budget time to review it. With the economy and so forth, I think it's going to be tough for the golf course to get back fully where we want it to be, but where a plan is hopefully with Billy Casper we can make some large improvements in that area.
Further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
For the manager or assistant manager, there was a question on G. Look at Sylvan Glen. Could you tell me the debt that's on Sylvan Glen?
Mayor and City Council, there's no debt for Sylvan Glen.
So then, could that possibly explain some discrepancy that was noted earlier from a speaker? That since there's no debt, the revenue, in fact, is just revenue?
That is one of the main reasons why Sanctuary Lake is in its deficit position right now, because of the debt service that's required on that fund.
Connor?
Mr. Zerlag?
Did Mrs. Kerr want to say something else? If Sanctuary Lake were to be closed, the liability to the city would be greater because we do make money that covers a portion of the debt service. and that was analyzed as well a couple of years back. There was also an indication that our recreation programming cost $13 million. I don't know where that came from, but City Council's challenge to the city administration is that our recreational programming be self-sufficient so that there are no monies from the general fund for that programming. There'll be a reduction in funds, but there will not be any outlay with the exception of debt service on the community center, which is paid for by the general fund and downtown development authority. With that exception, recreation programming will be paid for by user fees.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
There was a desire, the last speaker who spoke specifically wanting to drill down and then cited some figures that are in there. Certainly revenue comes in, but there are expenditures that have to do with this. However, just a reminder for those, what was suggested by Christine Hill, who sits in the back, do your homework. This is completely available online. One can look at the enterprise funds. One can drill down by simply logging on to our Troy website and looking at the budget, both for this year and for the coming 2 years.
Another point on this is that Sanctuary Lake Golf Course was built, of course, on top of a refuge site. But the request for having a second golf course in Troy came after 20 years of requests by golfers in the city of Troy to have a second golf course. And when Sullivan Glen first was built, there was a situation with that. And so it takes a period of time for that to dissipate. And for folks that are new in town or that don't have the institutional memory of what has happened in this town over a period of years, it was 20 years of request about the golf course that the second golf course came about. And now that we have them both run with outside people, we are looking at the providing that service, but doing it in a different way. You ready for the vote on I-6?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
Question for management. Realistically, when do we expect that the Sanctuary Lake Golf Course Fund will be operating income positive?
John?
Mr. Lamorato?
A lot depends on the economy. I think each year we're taking a look at it. The new Billy Casper Golf, looking at increasing outings, looking at increasing the way they do business there, the marketing of the course and so forth, and we're hoping that would make some significant strides towards that. We're going to need a change in the economy, first of all, too, to help out in the golf course. Yeah. It'll be several years.
Mrs. Plotton, the vote?
Councilmember Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
And Howerlag?
Yes.
Motion passes. I-7 is a preliminary site condominium approval extension for Oak Forest South Site condominium, which is really houses, but they're a condominium site. On the east side of Willow Grove, south of Square Lake Road, Section 11, R1C. And before you start this extension, there are no changes.
There are no
We're not
changes.
requesting any changes. We just want another year.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I can
Did you have
summarize
any-
the application or answer any questions you may have.
Council, do you have questions? Do you want him to present anything on this? Councilman Beltramini?
Mr. Savedant, would there be any changes required in this preliminary site condo plan under the proposed new zoning ordinance? Could
No.
it pass the new zoning ordinance just as it is?
Yes, I believe it would. There's been such an insignificant amount of changes to the single-family residential zoning districts that I believe this would comply even after the new ordinance was adopted.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. I know you were prepared to explain it all to us if we needed it, but since that's why I thought I'd ask if there are any changes. Okay, could we have a resolution then, Council?
Here,
Councilman Fleming?
I will move the resolution as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Fleming, seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis, that we approve the resolution as printed. Discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilwoman Beltrame?
I just want to make a statement that I am happy to see that staff did use the same resolution for us this year that they used last year, as opposed to the more streamlined version used by the Planning Commission. I appreciate that, and thank you.
Yes, I noted that too, and I thought that was very good. Mrs. Plata?
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howard
Yes.
And Kerwin?
Yes.
Motion passes. J is the consent agenda, J1A, and please note that there was a change in the minutes of the council meeting that's laid on the table. Do we have a resolution? Does anyone and council want any items removed from the consent agenda?
Mayor,
Councilman Howard?
J4A.
J4A. Any others? Could we have a resolution approving all items except for J4A?
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman McGinnis?
be it hereby resolved that Troy City Council hereby approves all items on the consent agenda as presented with the exception of items J4A, which shall be considered after consent agenda items.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman McGinnis, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini, that we approve all items on the consent agenda with the exception of J4A, which shall be considered after the vote on this item. Discussion? Vote, Mrs. Plata?
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howard
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
And McGinnis?
Yes.
Motion passes. J4A, Councilman Howard, you had a question?
Mayor, I am indeed opposed to this resolution. This particular contractor has been doing work with this city for a number of years, and its original contract was greatly expanded without bidding it out in the past. My overriding goal, my preference, I should say, would be to bring in a different firm. So I simply wanted to pull this resolution to have the ability to vote against it.
Further discussion on this item? I noted that there was a change in the hourly rate that was lowered. Two members were willing to take it at a lower cost. That was one of the things that was in the memo. Other council members, did you have any other comments with regard to this? I noticed the score was significantly higher on Carlisle Wortman than on the other two that were there.
Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
There's certainly a plus to some consistency here, because after the entire master plan was developed, then the partnership with the plan and zoning and working continuously with the body of the Planning Commission, I think has been, we've been well served by that.
Any others?
Madam Mayor,
This item, Councilwoman McGinnis?
I would agree. It went out to bid just like any other contract would, and I think the criteria were the same for anyone that chose to respond. And based on the scores, I think it's appropriate. And just because they've served us in the past, in this case, I think that they've served us well. So there wouldn't be any reason to negate that bidding process just simply because we worked with this company in the past. So I'm in support of this.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
I certainly appreciate the work that Mr. Carlisle has done in the past, and I certainly appreciate the bids from the two other entities. My question in these best value awards, is how you take out the human element, meaning that can we ever truly evaluate without entering into the evaluation our own prejudices? And the answer is probably no, because we are indeed human. So then the question becomes, when you have when you have such a great degree of scores from 3 different people, the question is why? In particular on phase 2, Carlisle Wortman scored 200 out of 200 by 2 people, and 195 on the third. Whereas the Birchler Arroyo, I'm looking at great discrepancies between the individuals, and my question is, how can Birchler Arroyo be so much worse to one person and as good as Carlisle Wortman to the other? But that's my concern, in addition to what I've already stated about just my discomfort with continuing with this particular firm based on their work product.
Further discussion of the motion? Oh, Mrs. Plata? Oh, there's no motion, sorry. Would someone move a motion to approve this?
Madam Mayor.
Councilor Beltramini?
Resolved that the Troy City Council hereby awards a contract to provide 3-year requirements of community planning and related services for the City of Troy with the option to renew for 2 additional years to the highest scoring respondent, Carlisle Wortman Associates Incorporated of Ann Arbor, Michigan, as a result of a best value process with which the Troy City Council determines to be in the best interest, in according with the agreement in Attachment 1 contained herein for SOQ-COT 10-24, open December 20, 2010, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting, and be it further resolved that the Troy City Council hereby awards this contract contingent upon contractor's submission of properly executed proposal and contract documents, including insurance certificates and all other specified requirements, and be it finally resolved that the Troy City Council hereby authorizes the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement for community planning and related services once acceptable form to expire March 31st, 2014.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilman Fleming, to approve the resolution as printed and read. Discussion? Vote, Mrs. Plata?
Mayor Schilling,
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini,
Yes.
Fleming,
Yes.
Howard-Lack,
No.
Kerwin,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Slater,
Yes.
Motion passes. Memorandums?
Madam Mayor.
Yes. Councilwoman Beltramini?
I had a question on 2A, and not so much a question. I appreciate staff's response to my question. I know that there was some concern about us discontinuing this service among the public, and we did get an answer. I understand that you can buy a license at participating veterinarians, which it might be helpful if one of us would get on the horn and find out if that's most of the vets here in town. But the fees will go up. However, we cannot man this service for $30,000 a year, and that's all the money we get from dog licenses. So we kind of have to let this go. And that's why you look at what we get. $30,000 will not pay to man this service. So it has to go away.
I, too, had concerns about if folks had to travel all the way out to the county to get their license, and also then about the costs that were involved, because some of the county commissioners were saying, at no cost to us. At no cost to us, but the person getting the license is going to pay more. They've neglected to say that part. And with Clausen going to this, going there for their service instead of to us, it does lose that revenue too, so appreciate that. Any others? Mr. Zerlag?
Just for the sake of the public, perhaps a brief synopsis on this matter may help. At our high point, we had 4 police service aides that functioned as animal control officers, 2 vehicles, and we took care of the city of Troy. We generate between 6,000 and 8,000 telephone calls, or we receive between 6,000 and 8,000 telephone calls a year from residents for animal control services. We are now going down with the county to incorporate be one of 10 cities with a population area, a nighttime population area of about 175,000 population, with 1 full-time animal control officer in that area and 1 part-time animal control officer from the county. So those 6,000 to 8,000 calls that we get a year will be referred to Oakland County Animal Control Services.
Okay, council comments? Yes, Mayor
Madam Mayor,
Pro Tem
just on this point, since we haven't really talked about what this is, but it is available. It's item 2A here. K2A. It's discontinued services, animal control services. There is a long list of things that the Oakland County Animal Control Services will not respond to. They're all things that we had been responding to. And it will be a nuisance, as Councilmember Beltramini points out. It will be more expensive for our residents. And it's most unfortunate because this was the personalized quality service that this city was known to deliver. And it was the desire of our residents to have that kind of service. Many of our residents care greatly for animals, and this will become a problem. The numbers that are cited in here that Mr. Zerlag just pointed out, I don't know how anything will be done with those kinds of 1 person for the 175,000 residents.
It's
just the way it's...
How will the people be notified when it's time for their license to be renewed and that they...
I think that Chief Mayor and Lieutenant Pappas can respond to these questions. Okay. They've been working on this diligently.
Right.
Mayor and council members, Lieutenant Pappas, Troy Police Department. We have researched this, and the discontinuation of animal control services is a result of the current budget challenges. We currently have a full-time animal control officer and 2 police service aides that are cross-trained and also help with animal control services. We will be eliminating those 3 positions, and yes, the Oakland County Animal Control Services will take care of an area with 1.5, as they so call it, 1.5 animal control officers from South Boulevard to 8 Mile, from DeQuinder to Adams. They operate in our memorandum prepared by the police department. You'll see the hours of operation that they are is like 9 to 5, and anything after that will be on call. Now, being a police officer for this city as long as I have, we're not going to let the public be in trouble. So if there is a problem, a hazard to a citizen, we're going to respond to it, and we're going to call the county and ask them to respond with us. Their response time could be as long as 1.5 hours, is what I'm told, on off hours.
Madam Mayor.
But specifically for the dog licenses?
Dog licensing will be completely handled by Oakland County. You can obtain a license online. There are participating, I don't know how many, there are participating veterinarians in the city, something we can research.
Will they be sending out notices to the individuals?
They also conduct a survey during the summer. They hire college students to go out, go door to door, and they survey the citizens of, or will survey the citizens of Troy to see how many animals they have within that residence and explain to them the licensing process.
They won't take our records that we have already on the animals and just send us a notice like
they have requested records from us based upon our registered owners of dogs, and I do believe that they will base their future registration upon those.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question, Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Just, I noticed that animals in distress. We've read letters that people have written because this department has helped animals in distress. We've seen a dog in a drain. We've seen all of this where much time was spent really to aid these animals. And as I say, community members have written letters. You've had those calls. You've had thousands of calls on issues as that. And according to this document, those won't be followed up on by the county any longer.
There is a list on page 2 of services that they will not offer.
And so, again, this is what less looks like.
Correct.
Okay, Councilman Slater, you had a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Could you give us bottom line savings on this? Maybe the residents would like to know that.
Chief?
It's difficult for us at this time to come up with the savings because we're still in excuse me. We're still in transition with our personnel. What our plan is to transition the personnel that have been assigned to the animal control duties to inside duties to replace other personnel that have retired that we're not replacing. So we don't have those numbers yet because we don't know for sure who's going to take advantage of the early retirement plans when they're offered. So we don't have that data yet. We can report that at a future meeting.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes,
I
Councilman
think it would be safe to say it's a significant cost savings, though, so the residents know that we're giving this up, but there is a significant cost savings.
Vehicle cost, the money that we pay currently for animal care by the county will be discontinued at the point of transition over to them, and no future budgeting for that will be necessary.
Mayor, if I may add a point to that.
Chief?
I didn't answer that question very well, Councilman Slater.
Oh, that's okay.
We're going to have, and your points will take it. It's 4 people that we won't be paying to do animal control duties any longer. So there will be a significant savings with that. At this juncture, what I was referring to at a future council meeting is we're moving those positions inside because we've eliminated inside positions. So we don't want to make it look like we're just shuffling bodies around. We're replacing people that are no longer here. So we'll be able to explain more fully in a future budget presentation, but it's 4 people. So it is a significant amount of money that we'll be saving that we just don't have anymore, that we'll be transitioning over to the county. They'll do their best. They seem like they're going to try really hard, but they can't do it to the level, as it's been pointed out, that we've done it traditionally at our high level of service that we've done for the citizens of the city of Troy. We just won't be able to do that anymore.
Further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief? Yes, Mr. Zerlake?
I also spoke in one of the initial meetings with Oakland County on animal control issues. One reason for the census is actually to kick up revenues for dog licenses. They'll knock on the door if they hear a dog barking and there's not a license attached to that house. They figure that there's a dog that needs to be licensed and they'll take the appropriate action.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
There's no action on this item, Mr. Zerlake, that we need to take, correct? It's just a memorandum?
It's a green memo, and then just in case City Council wanted us to stop the process of having a contract come before you, now would be the time to do so. If we don't hear something to the contrary tonight, then we'll continue to work through the law department and have a contract for you.
Okay, thank you. Council comments at this time?
Mayor?
Councilman Harlan, was that?
Yes, on another subject matter?
Yes.
I just wanted to follow up on what was brought forward to us by Mr. Brake and would like some clarification from management. I have what I believe in front of me, if I could have some verification that this is indeed what the city has filed, or I should say had filed with court. It says, furthermore, continued funding of the library at its current level would necessarily result in a layoff of 1/3 of the current police department personnel. Is this indeed part of the documents that the city filed with the court?
Mrs. Bloom?
Mayor, without having it here, I was present when Mr. Brake provided the information, and he did provide information that was taken from the document. I don't have that information here in front of me. I didn't expect it to be brought up tonight in this meeting. And I would also indicate that that is information that I was provided. I believe that there are about 40 positions in the police department that are going to be eliminated, and so I believe that that does represent the substantial impact that it would have if council were to choose over an extended period of time to fund the library as opposed to public safety.
So if I understand it, our position is that 40 positions equates to $2.3 million. So our police are being paid about, what, with benefits, about $50,000 a year when the contract actually starts them in at a higher rate?
Madam Mayor, first of all, that was really not dispositive. That is included in the pleadings, but it really was not dispositive. It was an illustration, and it was brought forward for the courts just to show that these are very difficult times and that council does need to make some decisions, but really it's council that needs to make the budget decisions. So it is kind of miscellaneous information that is included in the pleading. It was not dispositive to the pleading. And at this point, I don't have the information to be able to refute what you're saying. It is available. It is public information, and I'm happy to have that matter brought up if council desires to follow up on that and needs that information brought back again.
And I only mentioned it because I should have brought it up during the rebuttal, but I thought somebody from your side of the table would. I think in order to clarify the issue, it would be helpful to either let it stand or to rebut it. So that's the only thing. I just wanted to bring it up because usually when something like that is brought up by a resident, it's a fairly significant discrepancy. If we could at least have some clarification as to where the city's position is in this, I think it would be edifying.
Any other council comments?
Mayor?
Well, I was going to call on another council member because our rules indicate that before you have a second turn, we should give everybody a chance. So, Councilwoman Beltramini?
I just, before we leave the agenda altogether, I'd like to at some point discuss N4. So.
Pardon?
I'd like to discuss N4 before we leave the agenda totally. So.
N4? Okay.
I just.
Oh, yes.
Tell you I want to do that.
I had that marked.
And then we'll finish with council comments.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Madam Mayor, and I have a couple, so I'll rotate around too. But the first thing is on study sessions, and I'd ask for your help with this, Madam Mayor, is that I know that we have brought up a number of things that would merit further discussion. And we used to talk about having, that third meeting where we could sit around the table and talk, but that's just kind of gone. We're using the meetings for meetings, but we've now lost that ability to have true study sessions. I know that after we received the ICMA report, I remember seeing Councilmember Beltramini saying, what now? We haven't talked as a council about even the first part of those recommendations and how to move forward on that. And that really needs a meeting, I think. Tonight I'm grateful that we're having this study session. The third thing would be a lot of questions have come up about the library. What are the plans? Is it going to close forever? Will it never reopen? When is the final date? Where are the signs? That kind of a report or even direction of council on the library itself has never appeared except in a memo like that. So I guess I'd like your help with working with the city manager to ensure that we do have study sessions which are dedicated to some of the pressing issues for which we are better served sitting at the table in the other room.
I thought that we were going to have a study session on ICMA report after we had both portions together. That was
What I'm asking.
Because they do, it is all-encompassing, not just one section and then a study meeting on the other section. I think they're going to have, both have effects on each other. So I'd like to see a session on that after we get the second part in. As far as information about the library, I've seen a lot of information out there. For example, on the library website, there have been several places that have indicated about it closing to service to the public at the end of April, which is 70 days from now. But apparently other people aren't seeing that same information or aren't tracking that as we are. Sometimes we're so close to it, we forget everybody else doesn't look at those things. Mr. Zerlag?
Thank you. With reference to the issue of having on the city's and library's website the closure of the library on April 30th, staff had asked me a couple of weeks ago if they could put that on as a final date to close the doors, and I said no, because there was a resolution that was tabled by the governing body to see if there was a way to save the library, and I did not feel comfortable on our official website saying the library is going to close, knowing that City Council was going to consider a resolution that would keep it open. So now that that resolution failed, as early as tomorrow, on our website as well as the library's website, there will be an indication that the library's doors are closing April 30th. In terms of the ICMA Phase 2, if you will, Craig Rapp from ICMA spoke with me this afternoon, and we had fallen on March 7th for their proposal. You'll all be here March 7th? Question I have is, do you want to do the same thing we did with Phase 1 and essentially meet at 6 o'clock, or do you want to make it just a regular, I'll keep a very super light agenda and we'll bring them in at 7:30. It's your choice.
I would prefer just to have a meeting on the ICMA report. I know we have our regular council meeting scheduled, but I don't know how we can do that adjustment. That could be our only item on that agenda.
Well, I believe we just passed a postponement to have one other item on there.
Oh, yes, we did. Councilman Beltramini?
Simply wondering if, rather than reconsidering that tonight, we can, or should we reconsider it tonight and reschedule it? But do you really want to reschedule it for? You wait too long to do it. You could put that on. I don't know. It's up to somebody else.
Unless after we have our study item tonight, we decide that we can have enough information together by the 28th, and then we could bring it up in there. Council, Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
I just want to stress again, on these study sessions that are available and vacant, if you, in working with the city manager, have heard from this body an interest in discussing something, that we just don't lose that altogether. We've lost many other opportunities to sit at that table. So I implore you to please consider doing that.
Any other items under council comments?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
I'll defer to Councilman Slater. He hasn't spoken.
Councilman Slater? Thank you.
You want me to 7:30?
Thank you. I think it's okay to delay the ICMA discussion, but I think there are some things that are in that first study that we need to give some quick direction to administration, and one of them is their recommendation to keep 7 full-time positions restored in the Public Works, and I think we need to seriously take a look at that, because I certainly agree with the ICMA that that is going to be unsustainable, and I don't think we should continue to delay that for budgetary purposes. I think they need some direction rather quickly. If we're going to change option 1, then I don't think we can wait a whole lot longer. So if we are going to fund these positions, it has to come from somewhere. So I think we need to discuss it, and rather quickly, because I think they need direction. And if the consensus is to leave it as it is, so be it. But personally, I don't want to leave it as is.
Well,
when we pay the experts to tell us recommendations, I think we should take a good look at that and make a decision on that.
what's difficult about all of that and having a discussion about that is that we've already explored looking at things because people asked us to look at it in regards to the library. Now we're looking at it in terms of positions for keeping services at a level that's sustainable in DPW. And when I've looked at it many different ways, I think that eventually it all comes down to the fact that we're going to have to get millage somehow to do these things. And that's the discussion that this council needs to have about whether they're willing to do that and how they want to. I know no one wants to hear that, but I think that eventually we're going to have that discussion in terms of everything that's needed for the city, not just one piece at a time and then one piece at a time here and one piece at a time there. That's the reason why I say it at this point. Councilman Slater?
Well, I certainly agree with that, and I know we voted on a resolution tonight about the library, and I don't think that was the fix. I don't think it was realistic, and that's why I voted no. It's easy to say that and put a resolution out there, but I don't believe anything about it, and so I voted no. But there are other solutions. I heard some talk tonight about an up and down vote. I support that kind of thinking, but I think we need to start talking about this pretty quickly. We have some important decisions to make here pretty soon. So I want to give direction to city management here pretty soon.
Mayor?
Councilman Howard.
If I could follow up and ask Councilman Slater, what part of the resolution didn't you agree with and why?
I don't agree with any of it. I don't believe the 1.7 is, it was explained to me at the meeting. I accept that. I've looked at the numbers. I think it's fantasy. I think some of it's illegal. I like nothing about it because it's not reality.
Mayor?
Councilman Howard.
Councilman Slater, if you're going to accuse part of that resolution as being illegal, you owe me the decency of telling me what it is.
Well, I think there's some statutes that govern what you do with pension, and I don't support that. So that's my opinion. I don't agree with anything about it. And it's easy to say, let's do it, but we've had experts tell us that it's not feasible, and it could put us in jeopardy. So I vote no on it.
Mayor?
Councilman Howard.
And the issue of funding the pension plan in this resolution matches exactly the funding requirements as set forth by the actuary at December 31st, 2009, which is the last actuary report that we have. I asked Councilman Slater again, if we don't have the $1.7 million, what do we have? I asked Councilman Slater on the current year's budget, what exactly do we have on there as unallocated fund reserve at the end of the budget year?
I am satisfied with the answers that were given to this council last week. And I know you sat with the administration along with Councilwoman Beltramini and got answers again. You said that you were going to have a bunch of questions for them before this meeting today. I didn't hear any of them. So, in my opinion, nothing changed from last week to this week. So, I agree with what they told us last week. There's a better solution, Councilman Harlech, and it's not that one. That's my opinion.
Mayor, if I can
we can debate this all night.
Mayor?
Councilman McGinnis, did you want the floor?
Well, I had something else to say, but if they...
Go ahead.
Okay, I was kind of caught off guard. I'm sorry. And I'll get back to that, but I don't even know how to transition into this. I just wanted to bring up a couple of other things that I saw under the reports here that I think should be noted. And I usually like to do this because I feel like sometimes if we don't read some of these into the record, that they may not be addressed. So I think that there are other issues here that mark a decline in service levels several things, and I just wanted to make sure that they were brought up. N6 indicates that rather than having the formal liquor license hearings that we've been accustomed to forever, we're not going to be following that same protocol, and I think that that relates directly back to staff time and energy that has to be placed into conducting those hearings and preparing for those hearings. So I wanted to make sure that it was known that those are still things that are taking place in our community. Although, you know, I'm concerned about the message that it sends that we're not conducting those hearings in the public forum. I don't think that the community values have changed to the point that those violations should go unnoticed, but I think that the memo that was prepared directly addresses why we are going to be having a change in procedure where we're not going to be addressing them here at council. And I didn't know if there was anyone else that wanted to comment on that. I wanted to bring it to light. If you look at N6, there's very specific information in there about the establishments and the violation and the history, all of the things that we would go over at a hearing, but because we no longer will have the time and energy as cited in the memo to conduct the hearings in the way that we have, I think that that should be pointed out, that that's in some sense a decreased level of service. And there's additional things that are listed in there in N7 and N9 that I think are very notable, especially N9, because I would imagine if that's not a question that has come up yet in the short time period that we've already had to deal with this, now that we're going to be entering pothole season, it's going to come. So I want to make sure that people are aware that the procedure of how we deal with those issues with our roadways will change as a result of decreased level of service and a lower level of funds. And just to finish up, and not to jump into the fray here, but because I feel like I should at least make a comment if we're having a discussion about it, I think we're having some discussions about public engagement tonight. We've got ICMA on the table. We are between a rock and a hard place because we've got 2 votes of the people that told us that they did not want millage increases, whether it was for general operating funds or for the library specifically. And I think that there potentially were issues with both of those votes and perhaps the way that they were perceived by the public, but it's placed us in a position where we need to move forward. We know what the goals are in terms of concessions. We've had discussions about it here, in streamlining, in basically providing a method to gain trust from the public that we're doing what they've asked us to do through their vote and here at public comment and all the comment that we take in all day, every day as council members, and we need to move forward on those things. So we have some direction here from ICMA. I want to make sure that those things happen quickly, and we keep making progress here. And I think that that's where I stand in terms of the direction that we need to keep going. Ultimately, I'm hoping that we can build a level of trust with the community so that they see the numbers that many of us on council see. And then we can make some serious up and down decisions about what level of service that we're willing to accept as a community. And I don't think that that's going to be accomplished until we can say that we've completed these things that are at hand. So that's just my follow-up.
Further council comments?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
Go back to what I originally wanted to say many minutes ago. And Mr. Councilman Slater and I got tied up in a mini debate here. But this dovetails nicely with it. And, you know, we all have the access to the same information. And, of course, we have the ability to individually look to other communities and so on and so forth to see what is out there. So one of the problems that this council has is agreeing on what the facts are and how to interpret them. Because if we can get past that point, we can actually focus on the policy debates. And, you know, if there's a piece of information out here that undermines my own argument, then I will acknowledge it and concede that. However, the problem that I have with this discussion, particularly as we get closer to the end of the budget year, is the lack of acknowledgement about what is here. For example, 2 major things. Again, we discussed them 2 weeks ago, but there was no resolution on them. we had a budget, and the current year budget had a budget projection at the end of the fiscal year that we would have $9.0 million in the unreserved, undesignated fund balance, which is now known as the unallocated fund balance. Subsequent to that, in December, 2 months ago, we received a comprehensive annual financial report that says even after the $2.4 million fund balance is used in the current budget year, because of the financial performance in 2010, we will have $10.7 million in unassigned fund balance at June 30th, 2011. We have only had one budget amendment, and that did not address the general operating fund. It only addressed the capital fund. We've had one 3-year budget update from management, and that was in November. And the grand total of all of the adjustments, not including the pension fund adjustments, for those 3 years was a positive $61,500 impact on the city. And then we also received from management an updated actuarial chart showing projected expenditures into the defined benefit pension plan. And because the pension plan performed better, let me go back. Because the pension fund in the past, in 2008, had performed so poorly, we basically created it whole. So the 2009 actuarial report showed that, of course, we would still have an expenditure, but it was less than what we had incorporated into our multi-year budget. If we can simply agree on the information that we have created for ourselves, then we can move on to the policy discussion about what we want to do. Because at some point, whether that be in May of this year or May of next year, the chickens will come home to roost, and you cannot put off what is coming down the pike. And if that's too much money instead of too little money, then I guess you've created a reverse Ponzi scheme. So it doesn't make those of you who are arguing, it doesn't make your point any better if you believe that we need a tax increase to ignore the facts that we have in front of us, all of us. For God's sakes, if you're going to accuse me of advocating something illegal, you need to man up and tell me what it is. You have absolutely nothing, Councilman Slater, to back that up.
I think that one of the points, Councilman Hawrylak, in your resolution, which was defeated this evening, was the fact that money that was suggested to use has already been designated for future budgets in our 3-year budget projections. So therefore, even though we've had gains, those are projected to go forward for when we're going to have decreases in future years. And we continually are hearing from the state that we are going to receive less back in revenue sharing. We continually hear about less money coming in with valuations. We've had the charts that are showing that. And so even though there may be small gains in some areas, it is not enough to make up that difference. We all had those numbers too back in November. I spoke to Mr. Lamarato as soon as we got that memo in November. Didn't come up for a discussion at the council table, but some of us did call and talk to him about it so that we would know exactly what those numbers were and what they meant.
Mayor?
Councilman Hawrylak?
Could you tell me what the fund balance was at June 30th, 2010, unallocated?
I see you have your book in front of you to look it up. I don't have my book in front of me. Also, council comments are not for back and forth between council members. It is to bring up items we wish to bring up.
Mayor?
Madam Mayor, I have...
Councilwoman Kerwin?
Oh, just move on according to our rules, and we can rotate back and try that again in a little bit. But Councilmember Howerlich just talked about some facts, and I know that many of us received a few emails today because TCU, Troy Citizens United, issued what they called facts, that at this meeting tonight there would be a permanent 1 mil vote before us. And I spent much of the day, where is this? What did that come from? And I think that it's very important for our residents to really look where the information is and not simply go by what someone sends out or what someone says. And that information is on the website. Anything on that would be considered as an action item on this agenda is found on the website. I thought it was interesting in this week's Troy Somerset Gazette that on page 4 there is a reference to the same kind of thing. Look at the facts, folks, tonight. During the meeting, do your homework, folks. And this was simple. People would blast off an email and I'd write back, it's not on the agenda. I suppose before I would send an email that someone suggested I send, please vet it. Please find out before you go down that road, because if not, it's all reactionary instead of what we should be, and that's based on truth. It was about a year ago that Keep Troy Safe sent out something about the millage that was voted on, defeated a year ago. It said, the truth about our millage, your total taxes are going down. If you recall, it was Troy Citizens United. It's a 29% increase. And no, this says a 9.5% decrease, which is what it was. At that time, we were saying it was about $100 for the typical household. Turns out that that wasn't true. It's $38. About the cost, Councilmember Beltramini, of that dog tag that now someone will have to drive for and get. So that's been a big savings. But on this card, it says, with the passage of the 1.9 mil, your total tax bill is going to be reduced. In fact, it has been reduced. The average resident will see an overall reduction in the tax bill of $392. Turns out it's been more. If the 1.9 millage proposal fails, the city budget will submit a budget that will close the library, museum, and nature center and will lay off police employees. All of that is happening now. City services in all areas will be cut to a bare minimum. You've seen that tonight. There will be a dramatic impact to public safety and quality of life services. One of the early speakers talked about, well, look at Wattles and Livernois. Yes, in fact, nearly all of the allocated funds for snow removal are gone. That's where we are. On this card, it says, and the city is still achieving wage and benefit concessions and continues to cut consistently. All of that is factual. This was a factual card sent out a year ago. People know. People chose to believe the Troy Citizens United, huge increase, don't fall for it. On the same point, when the library millage was before us, a letter went out and that said 30% increase if this passes. That was specious on its face. That meant that everything on that entire ballot would have been passed. There was no indication that that could in fact happen, and yet that's the kind of stuff that comes out in letters and from Troy Citizens United. It's time for people to look at the facts, get them straight, and not be gullible about what's going on here. Less means less. We are living with the results. If there is an interest in finding more information, please pursue it on the Troy website.
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
I would pose a question to Councilwoman Kerwin. Perhaps you could explain to the rest of us what 1.9 divided by 6.5 is.
You know, Madam Mayor, excuse me.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin.
It's fun to play with percentages and numbers, and I'll tell you why. I tip 29% at Pudge's. Generously, I would say, 29%. And my total bill is $3. That's with my 29% tip. So come on, folks. A lot has to do with what we're starting with as our millage.
Mayor?
We're starting with our millage since 1975. We've been in the 9s. We've been the lowest full-service city. So if you're going to start with a teeny small number, your percentage is going to appear a lot larger. I can take 75% off a fur coat and still not be able to afford it. It starts with the base number. And I know that Councilmember Beltramini has something that actually she wanted to bring before us, and I suppose we should do that so we can get in our other section.
Mayor, I do believe I have a right. I mean, we just had about 6 minutes of comment.
I thought we were rotating who was talking here.
Mayor, you just gave her 2 consecutive comments, and so my comment is brief.
Councilman Hawrylak, I would like to say something, and that is from something that was sent to you from all of you from the Free Press Today editorial, Michigan City's Future, Doing Less with Less. And they are suggesting the very thing that we're going to discuss in a study session if we ever get there, and that is SEMCOG is urging local governments to poll citizens on what municipal services they most value. It's an exercise all government leaders should undertake, even as they fight for better ways to finance local government. City managers and mayors should not expect relief soon. However, working with their constituents, they should start planning now for government that provides only those services people are willing to pay for. I'd like us to have our study session before midnight to discuss that.
Mayor?
Councilman Hawrylak?
And what I'm trying to get to is how we can actually build trust on this council so that we can indeed, what a number of people on both sides of the tax issue have said that we need to do, which is somehow move forward, and we can't if we can't ever agree on what the numbers are. And I wanted to follow up what Councilwoman Kerwin said, because this council has no authority on school district appropriations. And so to use that in your calculation to get to your $38, all I'm saying is if I were advocating that tax increase, I would say, yes, the rate is going up by 29%. But look, folks, your taxable value is decreasing. I'm saying it strengthens your argument to do that, because to do so otherwise, and you ask people to come and increase their mill levy, their general operating fund mill levy from 6.5 and add 1.9 onto it, and you tell them that it's only going up by 1.2% or whatever that number was, that's disingenuous. It makes them hard to buy into your argument. We need to concede that, yes, this is happening, but here's why, and here's why we think you need to do this.
Further council comments? Councilman Beltramini, did you ask for the floor? Did I miss you before?
No, I'm not getting in the middle of
Okay.
it.
N4A, though.
I do want to.
You said something about N4A?
Yeah, I do. When we talked to Mr. Zerlag and Mr. Lamorato last week, Senate Bill 34 was in front of the Senate Finance Committee, and I offhandedly said to Mr. Lamorato, that's a pretty good chunk for us, I think. And I believe that his answer was around $4 million to the city. And when I spoke to the Chamber of Commerce, their economic development people, last week, I said, you know, it bothers me, and it bothers me a lot. We lose personal property tax revenue, and while that seems like a really good thing for business, if we can't provide your services, because that's even the general fund part of that is more than $3 million on a $58 million budget, that's a nice chunk of change. And if we cannot provide the services, it is not a place you want to locate. And Michigan taxes, I say this at my own peril, I know, overall, they are in the middle nationally, even for businesses. And if the MBT is restructured, they will be significantly lower. So Michigan cities can raise revenue 2 ways: property taxes and income tax. That's it. That's all we can do, because we made a deal with the state to return revenue to us. And if they take away $4 million of our property tax, and I think bringing our constitutional, it's another $500,000 or so a year hit to us, we can only get so lean and still keep the city safe, keep the snow plowed, keep the potholes filled, and collect your trash. We just can't do it. So this resolution was actually prepared by another city, and I would like to know if this council would be willing to pass this resolution if management filled in the blanks. And since we are meeting next week, we could fill in the blanks and then do it appropriately with the proper numbers next week rather than taking them tonight. If I can get consensus to get that done.
When I looked at it on the weekend with the information, I said, this is good. We need to get that information in there and then pass it. So I would like management to fill in that and have it come back next week. How about the other council members?
Yes, absolutely. I think we need to have those numbers filled in and get this.
Okay. Councilman Slater, would you like this to come back?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Fleming? Councilman Howard?
No. And the reason why, at least not in its current form, Mayor, because the problem is you need to look at it from the standpoint of equity. Why should a business have to pay tax on a piece of furniture or a computer and a resident does? If you modify this to say, look, you're yanking away a form of local revenue, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to find a way to make us be able to live.
Madam Mayor?
Would you suggest any changes that you would send in, Councilman Howard, that you might be supporting of this to come back?
If you would like me to do that, I will.
By next week?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Again, I think the second line is helpful. It says, whereas Senate Bill 34 establishes no revenue offset. That's what the clincher in this is.
Yeah.
That's what the clincher is. You can disagree about the concept, but the clincher is, here it is, the great big sucking sun, on top of the 40% reduction in state revenue. We had $4.6 billion deprived from the municipalities since 2000, and this from a promise from the legislature that that state revenue sharing would be there. These are the missing police officers that we see before us tonight. When they talk about, well, we won't have gee, where did that money come from? From the 40% that's missing from our revenue sharing. Do the math over these past few years. That's what's going on here.
Well, the other thing that is important about sending a resolution to the state on this is that people are coming here and complaining about that they don't want to have any more taxes. They want to have a chance to vote on things. But the state and the governor can come up with things where they can pass it, and it doesn't have to go to the vote of the people. Something wrong there? And which is less money, more money coming out of the pockets of the people, and it's not going to the things that people say that they want their tax money to go for. How many emails have we gotten about snow plowing or phone calls that we've gotten? You know, I had one just today said she wanted her road cleared in the next 24 hours. After all, she pays her taxes all the time. She couldn't get out of her house to go to work, so she could pay her taxes. Well, folks, they want the things that are closest to them. But we have to have the funds to do that in order to do that and provide the services. And they're used to having good services in this community. They're very used to it. And they're having trouble struggling with the fact that we don't have the revenue that we used to have. We keep saying it, but it doesn't hit home. Mr. Zerlei?
I understand there's a split council on this matter, but I take my direction from the governing body. Do you want this back as a regular business item with the blanks filled in?
Yes.
Or report? Yes. A regular business item?
Regular business as written.
Okay.
Why we went up and down the table here.
And Your Honor, and I'm sorry if I may, on March 7th, 7:30 p.m., when ICMA comes in?
Madam Mayor, I prefer an early, the same as last time. We did it early, and it worked better. It's easier to be fresh earlier at 6.
If we do it, I felt last time we had that report, then we came in here and we just went right on to regular business? Or do we want just that on the agenda for that night? Is that what you're asking, Mr. Zerle?
I'm asking for the slate of items for you to consider that night, as well as what time you want to start.
Okay. Council members?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
I was just going to suggest that I think it would be helpful that if we could get the report at least a week before the presentation, I think that'll give us an opportunity to digest it a little bit more before we actually get there, so that if we have questions, they're more thought out.
Mr. Zerle?
We don't have the report yet. What will happen is that with this element, the primary players are Chief Mayor and his management staff. What they'll do is they'll look at a draft report and they'll check it for any inaccuracies and so forth. The last thing you want to be is embarrassed if there's a huge mistakes. It might take them 3 or 4 days to analyze that report. It goes back to ICMA. They look at it, either agree or disagree. It'll come back. I don't think I can give you a week, quite frankly, on it. Do you know, Chief Mayor, when we plan on getting the final version? After you take a look at it and correct any inaccuracies in terms of data?
Chief Mayor?
I've been in touch with there's 2 distinct elements. There's a data portion and there's a summary portion. I've been in touch with both people on that. We've got the data portion now that's supposed to go back to them by the end of the week, because we've been meeting with staff and making some corrections. The other portion I'm supposed to have hopefully tomorrow. I spoke to the gentleman tonight, and they'll take a few days also, and then they've got to get it back and edit it. So we'll try our best to get it back to them by Friday, and then they'll have a few days that they have to turn it around. And that's out of my control how long it will take them.
What I can guarantee is you'll get it the same day that I do. And but I don't know if it'll be a week or not.
Okay.
We'll do our best to turn it around as quick as we can, but we don't